is the captain and support player for the newly formed TI, formerly Team Eager, Aror. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man. We've been trying for a while to get like these top NA dudes, and it just hasn't really happened yet. So you're like our, well, I guess we got Weekend, so you're not our first big guy, but you're a second big guy.
Thanks for considering me big.
Yeah. I mean, you've been around the scene for a while, man. I mean, who wouldn't consider Aror as a big name in Smite, you know? So, all right. I guess the first thing we got to really talk about is this whole Zap situation. I mean, from a player standpoint, I mean, not a player standpoint, but like a fan standpoint. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. From a fan standpoint, this kind of really came out of nowhere. Was this something that had been building for a while, or did it kind of surprise you guys as well?
Was Zap leaving the team? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. So after Masters, I knew that there was going to be changes, but I didn't know what changes were going to exactly happen. And I talked to Zap, and I know he was thinking about taking a break before the split started. But I really wanted him to still play, and I told him that. And then he was still considering. A couple weeks had passed after Masters. SPL was starting up again soon, and he told me, "Yeah, I want to play again." So I'm like, "Awesome!" So, me and Best still wanted to play as well. There was a lot of confusion with Divios too. The reason why we decided to part ways with Pern was because of team atmosphere, and a lot of the things that were happening in the team was that him and Divios were clashing a lot, and Zap wanted a better atmosphere, so we were thinking about maybe not having Divios on the team again just because of that. But we realized most of it stemmed from DJ being on the team, and it wasn't Divios causing it. So
when you say like atmosphere stuff, I mean, the last year we've seen players being kicked for atmosphere stuff. I mean, like the biggest example is like MLC just being kind of like winning and wanting that too much, and like kind of throwing his teammates under the bus. Like, what kind of stuff was DJ doing? I mean, if you can talk about that.
I mean, he was just the biggest thing is that it seemed like he wasn't enjoying the game, and it was rubbing off on everybody else, and it just seemed like he wasn't having fun with the game at all. And he also seemed frustrated playing with us as a unit, so it just kind of rubbed everybody the wrong way.
I mean, I
guess that's the best way to put it.
That makes sense, yeah. And then, all right, so going back to Zap, like, he just kind of like, you know, waffled between I want to play, I don't want to play, I think I want to play, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, I'm pulling out.
Yeah, well, going back to what I was saying about Zap was, like I said, he wanted a better team atmosphere if he was going to play again. And he wasn't sure if he wanted to play again, but then he decided that he was going to play. So he was excited because SPL was starting again. He felt like he was in a good mindset to play. It started. I mean, the split started out okay for us. I think we started out splitting against Soar, which is pretty good. And then we struggled against E United. And then after that, he decided to step down. I'm pretty confident it had nothing to do with our with how we started or like how our play was at all with him stepping down. I just think he was burnt out, like he said. He was being completely honest, and that's what he told me after Masters, so it makes sense, and I was fine with it, but it did surprise me that he did want to step down. Well, it didn't surprise me, but it did catch me off guard, but when he said that he wanted to step down, it didn't surprise me, I guess. This is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense from what you're saying. Like, it doesn't sound like it really like surprised you, but I mean, like, it was like, oh man, like, you're actually doing that? Well, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, how does it feel now to play without Zapman? I mean, you've been playing with Zapman for a little while now, right?
Yeah, I've been playing with him for a year and a half. I I mean, it's different, that's for sure. Me and him really created like a close bond, I feel like, and we had like a really good lane going together. So it was nice playing with him. The new player I picked up, Zeno, it's been nice playing with him. He's been playing very, very well. Yeah, it's just different. That's all I can say. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
it sucks not playing with him, but you can't really do much about it. So
I mean,
yeah.
Zeno and Zap are pretty different styles of play too. I mean, Zapman's always been painted as the more aggressive guy, and then Zeno's kind of got his own little style going on right now.
I don't know. I feel like they're not 100% similar, but
Mhm.
Zeno's a pretty aggressive player. That's for sure. I think he has a pretty aggressive style compared to most hunters, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I mean,
As a support player,
I haven't had as much tape. I mean, Zeno obviously had like his ups and downs as well. He was the mid laner, and then now I felt like he was like the shining star on that Flashpoint roster from last split. I mean, I'm not talking shit about like Flashpoint as a whole. I just think Zeno played really, really well every game. So I was glad to see him picked up. But then you guys picked up El Chapo, which felt a little weird. I don't know how to say that. Like, what made you guys drop Sam, for El Chapo?
so the biggest thing with Sam, why we chose Chapo over Sam, was that Sam is a really good player. I think personally, I think he's a very, very good player. But the reason why it wasn't working was because how Best is as a player, he doesn't communicate like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In a way to where he need like to start things up, and we needed somebody in the mid, like on that side of the map, like in the first 3 minutes of the game, that communicate a lot between the mid and jungle. And Sam was also kind of like Best. I mean, he's still like a very, very good player, but he's just not that voice that we needed on the team. And I was kind of hoping that he would be, and that he could turn into that. But it's very hard for him to step into a team with like players that have been around for a long time and become that voice. So I could see why he had a hard time doing that. So that's why we wanted to go with Chapo, because with Chapo, he's very, very confident in his play, and he also has a very, very loud voice in terms of calling stuff in the early game, which what we want. So it's really, really nice having him on the team.
That makes a lot of sense. Like actually hearing, the explanation behind it. I mean, I know everybody, like, as soon as we heard like, you guys kicked Sam? Like, why would you kick Sam? Like, that was like right up in the height of. We also found out Sheikah got kicked, and we were just super mad that like these teams weren't giving these guys like a full chance. But I mean, hearing like it was because of just like the communication and like the base levels of like the foundation of the team just like didn't mesh completely. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing, going back to Sam 2, is we didn't really have a lot of time to make our decision on what jungler we wanted to pick, because we're also, like I was talking about, we were waiting to see if Zap still wanted to play, and we were trying to figure out what our whole roster situation was going to be. So by the time we started trying out junglers, we had like 3 days to try people out, and Sam did very, very well in the first couple of days we tried him out, so we decided to stick with him and try to make him grow as a player. But yeah, that's exactly where we were at with him.
Was the Zapman move to jungle ever a real thing, or was that just complete troll?
It was never really a real thing at all. I mean, I think Zap wants to play a different role. I think if he does come back after his break, he might try to play a different role. Like, I don't know anything about what he's going to do, and he probably hasn't put much thought into it himself. But the Zapman jungle thing, it was touched upon between all of us, but I really wanted him to stay as hunter, because he's a really, really good hunter. So
yeah,
we were just looking for a jungler mainly.
All right. I mean, we all kind of figured it was troll, but I mean, Zapman's like the carry guy, and like waffling between like an ADC or a jungler, like those are the carry roles. So it's like, I know this is troll, but also Zapman, so I could see it,
Mm-hmm.
So, we've pretty much touched on all like the roster stuff. So, now that you've got a new jungler and you've got a new ADC and all that, like, I mean, you and the best have been playing a while, so you guys got good synergy. But throwing Chapo in that, you've got, you know, your jungle mid support synergy. How different is that now with Chapo than what it was with like DJ?
I It's really weird when we play with DJ. I didn't really have good synergy with DJ at all when I played with him, honestly. Um, what DJ was really good at was like mid game and late game shot calling, like the macro game. Um, but in the early game, I never really had synergy with DJ at all. That's how I feel like personally. So me and Chapo's synergy is very strong already. Comparing it to DJ's and then comparing it to Sam's. Sam was also kind of quiet, so I feel like with somebody who is not as has a really high communication, it takes a while to build synergy up. Like it took me and Best a while to build synergy up, and now we have really good synergy. I mean, me and Sam didn't really have that great of synergy, but since Chapo communicates a lot, I communicate a lot. Our synergy has been pretty good so far, and I feel like it's gonna get a lot better.
So you said
compared to the other junglers.
Yeah. So you said DJ was like really good at like the mid to late game shot calling. Does Chapo have that same strength? Like where is like the mid to late game shot calling now? Is that more on like you, Divios the best, or does like Chapo have his own little strengths that he brings to that?
Yeah, Chapo definitely does have his own little strengths with that. Before, when it was 5 of us on like the Eager roster last split or in all of last year, everybody kind of contributed into shot calling. DJ was more of the in-game leader type of guy, so nobody really dominated the shot calling aspect of the game. He liked making the final decision, which we were all fine with. But Zap really good at shot calling. He did it for teams he's been on in the past. Divios did it when he was on TSM for his team. I've kind of done it on lesser teams, like the team that I was on, Fat Chunks. And then Best is also able to make calls because he's so experienced and he's been playing for so long. So, I mean, all of us had the ability to make calls, but DJ kind of like be that in-game leader. But all of us definitely made calls through all of last year and the first split of this year as well. So transitioning to new jungler, we all felt like it would be pretty easy to kind of integrate them into the system, and then they would be able to make some calls, and then the rest of the team would also be able to contribute to making calls as well. Because I really don't think having one person as your main shot caller is a good idea, because it puts so much pressure on them, and they can't think for everybody else. They have to think for themselves, and they also have to make the macro call as well. So having other people think about it is very good for a team environment.
That's kind of what we've heard. Like we've kind of heard the two different sides of. I mean, you've got the teams like Enemy with Pain being the shot caller. He is the boss. What he says goes. And then you've got teams like, you know, what Soar was right after the fact, which was, you know, everybody's kind of got their own shot calling too, and it's very different styles. And, you know, I mentioned those teams specifically just because they had a bunch of players go back and forth, and like, from what I've heard, Solar was a much better environment than Enemy was, and having that one singular guy making the calls. So
yeah.
All right, so I think we've talked about the roster enough. Team AI. Why Team AI? Is it because you're all bots? Is that why you're AI?
Yeah, so there's actually a really funny inside joke that goes with the team that I'm never going to tell anybody what it is, and the team only knows. But people are allowed to guess what it's called. Everybody thinks it's like artificial intelligence or like arcane intellect from like Hearthstone. Allen Iverson from the NBA. You can think whatever you want to think of it, but I can't wait till I see it in Twitch chat or Twitter or Reddit post or whatever when somebody actually figures out what AI stands for, because nobody's guessed it yet. I've seen one person get pretty close to guessing what it was, but they didn't get it all the way. That's all I could. That's the only.
Oh my
hint
god,
that
that's such a tease.
So, yeah. So it's just an inside joke between the team, and it's a pretty funny one. And once people finally realize what it is, it'll be really funny. But I don't know if anyone's gonna pick up on it for a while. We'll just have to wait and see.
All right. Well, I know there was some rumors. I mean, basically, Twitch chat and whatever that like floated around the idea of, like, you guys were gonna come back as cognitive. Did you guys ever think about doing that?
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, when I was on COG, I never really talked to the ownership or whatever it was at all. So nor did Best. So I mean, I for sure between me and Best, we didn't even have that in our mind. And then I don't think Divios talked to them much either. So the COG was never in the picture at all.
Okay. People want to hold on to that nostalgia. They want the old days of Smite back in any way they can, and they just want to hold on to that. So another topic I want to talk about is Divios. Is last season, the meta, we saw him on a lot of Guardians. Sometimes it worked, and then sometimes you got Worlds, and it the Terra didn't exactly work. But you guys actually were on the Terra before everybody else was on the Terra solo lane. So you guys were ahead of the curve, I guess. But this split, we've kind of seen him go back to just being big bad lane bully Divios. And like, was that like the plan? Like, you guys kind of just gave in a little bit, like, all right, we've been trying to make these Guardians work. Let's just kind of go back to the meta. Because I mean, Eager has been known to like push the meta in certain ways that sometimes work and sometimes don't. And like, it feels like you guys finally kind of in the solo lane bended to the meta.
I mean, just how the game changed for season 4. The Guardians just kind of fell off compared to the Warriors, and we didn't pick up on that. And we weren't able to pick up on that in the first split because none of the NA teams could really challenge us to the point where the EU teams would. So we didn't really know. So we didn't really switch our playstyle up too much. But once we played at Masters, we realized that the Warriors were very, very strong. So we just started edging more in that direction. It's just kind of how the game changes over the course of time. So that's the thought basically behind it.
What would you say like the biggest thing you guys learned from the first split this year was?
I mean that EU definitely was ahead of us, and they have a way better scrim infrastructure. At least I don't know, to be honest, but at least from an outside person looking in, it looks better than NA's scrim setup, at least in my opinion. So I feel like that's one thing. So I wanted to try to take scrims more seriously, like than I did before, and try to get like a lot of scrims and actually put a lot of time into the game.
All right. I wouldn't have thought like the scrims would be that big of a difference. I mean, I guess like we've seen some stuff like that. I mean, where go ahead.
Well, what happens is that you scrim one team for a long time, like scrim partners, whatever. Like that's like a famous NA saying is scrim partners. You scrim one team, you keep scrimming this team, and you get really, really good at playing against that team, and you'll start playing stuff just to counter that team, and it actually won't be good at all. You're just playing it because it's good against the team that you're playing against. And this little mini scrim meta will happen, and the two teams, the scrim partners in quotation marks, will play each other, and they'll keep playing each other, and they'll realize that this scrim meta is only good against the team that you're playing against, like the scrim partner you're against. And what happens is that you just play to that style. Like that, you saw what happened at Super Regionals last year. LG and Sword just scrimmed each other all the way up until then. And they had no idea what we were playing at all, and they only knew their style, and they got completely caught off guard and surprised by what we were doing. And we kind of just blew everybody out of the water because they were in their own little scrim meta thing. And we were trying to play a variety of teams, but it was harder to do that. So I feel like all the top EU teams scrim each other, and they just don't scrim one team over and over again. And I feel like NA is adapting that a lot better this season than they did last season. So I feel like that's helping NA a lot.
That's really good to hear. I mean,
So
we need more NA representation at the top, man. I mean, from a fan standpoint too, the biggest difference watching NA and EU is objective play. I mean, EU, they live and die and breathe and eat and sleep the objectives, and NA didn't quite have that in the bag, especially this like first split of the year.
yeah, I mean, I feel like the NA was just behind the meta completely compared to EU. We didn't even know Center was well. I guess we knew Center was good. LG knew Center was good, but EU knew it was really good, and they also knew that the Robin was really, really good at the LAN as well. So I feel like we were just behind in general. I feel like the objective thing has some merit to it, but that's not the main thing that was hurting us.
There's more to the story than like just the objective play. It's a whole thing, I can see what you mean. Like that style of scrimming versus what apparently EU is doing. That breeds two very different environments. You know. All right, so I think that's about it for all our questions over here. So this is the point in the show where I give you my soapbox to stand on. Anything you want to talk about, any call outs, any shout outs, anything you want to say right now, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to all my teammates and especially Best and Divios for sticking through this hard time. I mean, making roster changes is always rough. I mean, anybody who's experienced them in any competitive atmosphere with sports or esports or whatever, everybody knows that it's not an easy thing to go through, and they've done a very, very good job of going through it. And then just a shout out to Chapo and Zeno for stepping on board in the middle of the season, doing very, very well, and being confident, which is awesome to have as teammates. Always really, really nice. And just a shout out to all the fans that stuck with us through all these changes and stuff. And I mean, I know a lot of the eager fans like to represent Zapman, which is cool. And I know we're going to lose the majority of those fans, but everybody that like stayed on board with the team and is still supporting me, Divios, and Best, and then obviously Chapo and Zeno as well, the new additions, is awesome. And I just appreciate anybody that is still sticking around and cheering for us, because the fans is what makes like esports, sports, like anything that's competitive stay relevant. So it's just awesome to see that by the community. So I just want to say thank you to all the people that stuck by us through all these changes and stuff. And that's about it.
All right. And then so you guys, let's see, you got IMOG and you got Noble this week. How are you feeling about those two matchups?
I'm feeling really confident personally. I know everybody else on my team is as well, and we're just excited to play games, and we feel like we're gonna have a really, really good shot at making Valencia. And we're mainly focusing on the game that we have on Thursday, which is against In Memory of Gabe, and we're gonna take it step by step from there, one game at a time. And that's just the mindset we have going in. And we know that a lot of people are already counting us out, but I believe in every single one of my teammates, and I know that they believe in themselves and in the rest of the team as well. So I'm excited to see what happens.
All right, I know I'm excited to see what happens, and I wish you guys the best of luck. Thank you for coming on the show, and yeah, good luck getting to Valencia and beyond.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed being on the show. I'm glad I finally was able to make it on.
Yeah, we're really glad you were finally able to make it on as well. For those of you at home, we've been trying to make this happen since last split. I mean, we had Barra and Jeff who kind of flaked out on us, and then we had Aror, who was going to be our last minute hero, and then flight stuff, and then that got canceled out. But the difference is Aror came back to us. Barra and Jeff didn't. So fuck those guys.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm calling them out. I'm calling them out right here. All right, yeah.
All right.
So that's it for us, guys. See you next week.